I'm not a lawyer, but from what I understand, it's not the most serious issue in the world. It really is the fact that he hasn't provided the documents that his legal team had previously agreed that they would by March 31, and the New York Justice judge basically said you've had repeated failures, you've had repeated opportunities, and technically Trump, if he doesn't pay the fine, he could face jail time, but that's highly unlikely. This is really just, in my opinion, although again I'm not a lawyer, this is a pretty small matter. It's more of a, this is the documents are a broader challenge for Trump.
Yeah. It is interesting, though, because he faces investigation on a number of other fronts for fraud relating to his business dealings. Are they likely in any way to hamper Trump's potential ambitions for returning to the White House?
That's a great question. Yeah, it really is dizzying, the number of cases that he's facing. So you have that January 6th House Select Committee in Georgia. You have a district attorney looking into issues there from the election. You have two investigations with the New York State Attorney General. You have Mary Trump, his niece, a lawsuit there, and a number of others. But ultimately, the question is, yes, will any of these prevent him from running for office again? And I don't think that is likely whatsoever. If you look at the Constitution, there really aren't that many limitations on what makes someone eligible to run for president. And the number one way that they could prevent him from running for president is something called Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. And it was ratified after the Civil War. And it says that anyone who engaged in insurrection or rebellion are disqualified from future office. And so I think the House Select Committee, the January 6th House Select Committee in particular, is trying to, members of that committee are trying to get that argument in the courts, but it really is unprecedented for that to happen. So I think it's highly unlikely that they're going to be able to stop him from running, but they are definitely going to hope, or they're definitely hoping that they will somehow hurt his chances and somehow cause there to be more concern about whether people really want to vote for him again.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, there's so much discussion around what happened on January the 6th. And, immediately after the election was lost by Donald Trump, and a treasure trove of texts from the former White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, has been made public. And it was disturbing, crazy. It made for extraordinary reading.
It really did. To me, as someone that followed this, I really wasn't all that surprised by many of these texts. I think a lot of the people texting Mark Meadows, they made their opinions on January 6th pretty public, and on the president himself, they made their views on him pretty public, whether it be controversial members of Congress or controversial media personalities. What really sticks out to me, though, is another media event going on, and that is the slow drip feed of a new book coming out by two writers from the New York Times called "This Will Not Pass." And they interviewed a number of high-ranking officials in the Republican and Democratic parties in the last year of the Trump administration and the first year of the Biden administration. And what I find really fascinating about this book in particular so far, what's been leaked, is that on one hand, you have Republicans famously not showing a lot of spine when it comes to standing up for Trump. Privately, they'll say all sorts of things to reporters like they do in this book. But what's really fascinating to me is that they are not only unable to stand up to Donald Trump, these Republicans, but they're also seemingly unable to predict how weak-willed other Republicans will be. You have someone like Mitch McConnell, who, regardless of your political views of him or opinions, he is an effective player in the Republican and political world. And Mitch McConnell said, if this wasn't an impeachable offense, I don't know what is, about Donald Trump in January 6th. And he also said Donald Trump put a gun to his head and pulled the trigger. And Mitch McConnell thought that they were going to completely get rid of Donald Trump. And that could not have been a further mistake on his part to predict that. So again, the fact that someone as skillful as Mitch McConnell could be so wrong. I mean, Mitch McConnell ultimately refused to convict Trump in the impeachment himself. And even just this year, someone was asking him, would you vote for Trump in 2024? And his response was absolutely.
Yeah. To your point, it's this revisionist history that so many of these senior Republican figures are going through. And you're seeing this in the battle for Republican Party selection in a number of really key midterms that are coming up, just how beholden so many candidates remain to Trump.
Yeah, it really is remarkable how much of a big player Trump is. At the U.S. Study Center, we've done survey work on this actually, and we surveyed over 1,200 Americans, and we found that 97% of Biden voters and 99% of Trump voters would not change their party vote in 2024. It really shows you that Americans are locked in and really not changing their opinion of anyone anytime soon. And, you know, you look at Biden's approval rating and it's basically the same as Trump's or just a bit higher and definitely within the margin of error. It just shows you that it really is a country fixed right now and not really moving very much.
Yeah.
And so I think right now the midterms in Pennsylvania and Ohio are really fascinating because those are those are Midwest states that are known for having more moderate politics in general, or so Democrats and Republicans there are not known to be more right-wing or left-wing. They're more centrist, and yet it really is bringing out the worst because, as I said, the parties are fixed and they're really not going to the center anytime soon.
Yeah, and it's going to be difficult for the Democrats to hold on in terms of controlling the Senate because the rising cost of living is really creating a lot of unhappiness for many Americans.
That's right. Yeah. If you look at inflation now, the highest rates in decades and cost of living, you have, on the whole, you look at the top line numbers in the economy, and the Biden administration is happy to tout those numbers, talk about record job creation, leading economic growth in the OECD and G7. But that really doesn't hit the kitchen table conversations. And that's something that Joe Biden in particular is sensitive to. He's not one that embraces economists. He wants to talk about the everyman, the working class, the middle class. That's who really he sees as his home constituency in many ways, talking about being the man from Scranton, Pennsylvania. But those people in Scranton, Pennsylvania and elsewhere across the country are really feeling the pain from inflation and cost of living and the price of gas. And it's just those top line economic numbers are not translating down to everyday Americans. And that's why I think in November this year, the odds of Republicans taking over are pretty significant.
Yeah, indeed.